Welcome to the third episode of Kyoko Podcast. Your hosts are Richa
and Alia. Today we'll be discussing discrimination and crime.
And the question for today is, to what extent does your identity make you more vulnerable in society?
Trigger warning, there will be discussions about discrimination and assault.
Everything discussed are out of our own research and is not an offence to anyone we talk about. The audience are free to interpret and view the ideas or questions in their own way.
Let's dive in and murder.
So the first crime I'll be talking about is the case of Kendrick Johnson. So I'd like to begin the crime by talking about the victim, Kendrick Johnson. KJ was born into a loving family in Valdosta, Georgia. They were a family who lived in faith, so they were Christians and they used to go to church every week. Growing up, all of his family said that he was a happy child who enjoyed going to school. He also looked up to his dad a lot and he wanted to get into professional football. So basically, as a person, he had big dreams. They were a loving family. There wasn't like anything traumatic or any big negative events that happened in his childhood. They were a normal family. So let's get into what actually happened, the actual crime. On January 11th of 2013, KJ went to high school like any other day. But it wasn't like any other day because KJ didn't show up to his fourth period. And this was very unusual for KJ because he was a very punctual student, always went to lessons, always took part in everything that was taught in lessons. Finally, it became too late to assume that he missed the class or he was skipping the lesson. So the school contacts KJ's parents and KJ's family. They call the police immediately. Before I go any further into the case, I need to give you a layout of the school. So the school had two gyms, a new one and an old one. In the old gym, there were giant gym mats that were rolled up and placed vertically, so they went up to around 6 feet tall. Okay. And there were 4 CCTV cameras at the entrance to the old gym. So these are important things to know when I'm talking about the crime. So back to the crime, the police arrive at the school and they start searching, and that's when they find a body found upside down inside one of the rolled gym mats in the old gym. And they recognize it to be KJ's body and they let their family know. So going into the speculations about what happened to KJ and what the police did. The police immediately rule out foul play with KJ's death. And that's quite weird.
So they say he wasn't murdered?
Yeah.
That it was like a suicide?
They just see his body and they're like, yep,
immediately rule out.
He died just like that.
That is suspicious.
Very suspicious. And this is the theory that the police presented. They think that KJ's gym shoes were stuck inside this giant gym mat. This was nothing extraordinary, as the students at the high school, they did say that they hid their gym things in these mats because the school made them pay for lockers. Okay. And we don't want to pay for stuff.
Yeah.
So what they did is the students would hide, lift the gym mats from underneath, because it's a 6 feet tall giant gym mat. They would place their gym things underneath it, and then when they've got gym, they would go and pick it up.
Oh, okay.
And so this was not unusual if KJ's gym shoes were found inside the...
It was quite normal for that to happen.
Yeah. But the unusual part starts here. So what they said this, after they said this, the police say that they believe KJ jumps headfirst into the 6 feet tall mat to retrieve his shoes, got stuck and suffocated to death.
So instead of just lifting it up, he jumped in instead.
Yeah.
That was their speculation.
Yeah, so they basically said he dove into the gym mat.
How tall is KJ? He's not 6 foot, is he?
KJ, wait, I do have it written it down. KJ is 5 foot 10 inches tall.
So he wouldn't have jumped in. That's just dumb.
No,
so the police are clearly making it up. It's not logical.
It's like, imagine doing a leapfrog over like a 6 feet
Can you
tall
even do
person.
that?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's impossible. So it's weird when you think about it. So first of all, why would you jump into the mat to get the shoes, which would be at the bottom of the mat, when you think about it logically? What you would think is just lift the mat, get the shoes.
Exactly.
So this is what most of the students did. And you would think AJ would do the same.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, the center of this gym mat was 14 inches and KJ's shoulders were 19 inches. So
Okay.
more than what the center hole is.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it might be possible to squeeze in somehow if you had like both your arms, up in the air. That might reduce the shoulder length. But like when you're jumping in head first into a 6 feet tall high, you don't really think about the position you're jumping in.
Yeah.
You don't jump with your arms up. It's when you really think about it, it sounds weird.
So he's clearly been shoved in.
Yeah,
like,
it does
it's just not
seem
natural
so.
the state he's lying in that mat.
And thirdly, this is in the middle of a school day, so there is people constantly walking around.
Mm-hmm.
Students, teachers, janitors, principals, school people, and maybe even like coming into the gym. So if KJ was suffocated, surely he would have screamed for help. Like you don't just jump in and lay there hoping.
Exactly, and surely someone would have heard him.
Yeah, exactly. And like how it's a school gym. It's people always like going in, coming out.
Exactly.
How did people not notice this guy jumping into a 6 feet tall mat? I mean, surely there might be like a few instances when it's like empty.
Yeah.
But even screaming for help, they must have heard.
Did they have CCTV in there, like you said?
They have CCTVs at the entrance of the gym.
Oh, okay. So they wouldn't actually seen him jumping. I mean, in quotations, jumping in.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The coroner. So this is what happened after they found the body.
Mm-hmm.
So the coroner wasn't called in until after 5 hours since finding the body.
Okay.
So the area wasn't taped off, which means the crime scene, quotes, was easily compromised because it's a school and there are, curious kids, people always walking in.
Did they like contaminate the crime scene?
Yeah.
Right.
And like didn't have the right people come in. They also found blood on the walls, which was tested and concluded that it wasn't KJ's, but the police didn't test it any further, stating that it was unrelated to the case. Which is...
Right. So they find blood and they're like, no, this is not related to the case.
Yeah, basically, which is going against everything that they need to be doing.
Yeah.
They also found huge chunks of the CCTV footage missing from the CCTVs. So there's a lot of suspicious things happening around this. So going to the discovery of the body and the autopsy. So like I said, KJ was found inside one of the mats.
Mm-hmm.
There was vomit found near him and blood on his face, but there was nothing found on the shoes.
Okay.
So when you think about the position he jumped in, so his shoes are at the bottom, and if he jumped in head first, his head would be near his shoes. So when he's like upside down, you would expect something to be on his shoes, like especially if there's blood or vomit near him. But there is nothing to be found on his shoes. KJ's family, they obviously did not accept the police theory because it's completely stupid. They went to the morgue to see his body and they thought that it was very evident that KJ was in a physical altercation because his face had bruises all over it, and they also found cuts on his hands.
So it was quite obvious he'd been in a fight and he just hadn't killed himself.
Yeah, his family are very sure that this is not like a normal.
So it's really only the police that think that he killed himself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, however, the medical examiner rules the death as, and I quote, accidental by positional asphyxia. So that basically means like he suffocated because of the position he's in. So the examiner is sort of...
But you can't get bruised from that, can you?
Yeah, so it doesn't really add up. So the medical examiner is sort of agreeing with the police theory.
Okay.
Yeah, like I said, basically means because of the position you were placed in. Usually when suffocation happens, your lungs fill up with fluid.
Okay.
But when KJ's lungs were taken for autopsy, they were seen to be like the normal size, like there were no fluid found, like there were no signs of him being suffocated.
Right.
So it again goes against everything the police are saying. So in terms of the legal actions, KJ's family was understandably very frustrated because the police, they keep coming up with these theories, but there's no evidence to back it up.
Yeah.
So when they received the crime scene photos, the family immediately released it to the public, trying to get justice for their son. So they're hoping if the police can't help them, hopefully the community and like the media, they can like rile up the police and like
force them to like do something.
Exactly. Usually when suffocation happens, your lungs fill up with fluid.
Okay.
But when KJ's lungs were taken for autopsy, they were seen to be like the normal size, like there were no fluid found, like there were no signs of him being suffocated.
Right.
So it again goes against everything the police are saying. So in terms of the legal actions, KJ's family was understandably very frustrated because the police, they keep coming up with these theories, but there's no evidence to back it up.
Yeah.
So when they received the crime scene photos, the family immediately released it to the public, trying to get justice for their son. So they're hoping if the police can help them, hopefully the community and like the media, they can like rile up the police and like
force them to like do something.
Exactly. The shocking part was most of the parents refused to support this family and were siding with the police, saying that the family just wanted to cause trouble and they were doing this for attention. Again, completely stupid. So they contacted the media hoping that the public would stand with them, but unfortunately most of the families in that community,
you'd think they would support KJ's family, especially having kids themselves.
Exactly, this is a kid.
And if it was their kid that had been murdered or put in this situation, they'd want help.
Yeah, so this was very shocking from the community. I think mainly because the town of Valdosta was primarily white, and majority of the people working on KJ's case was white, which makes you wonder if race, had something to do with the lack of support from the community and the police. So the family continued to work to gain justice, and on one account, they formed a barrier with linked arms in front of the courthouse entrance. The police then arrested the parents, Kendrick's parents, and this is what caused the case to blow up. So the fact that, it's a grieving family, they want justice for their son, and they do something to get the justice, but the police, arrest them for wanting justice.
Oh, they actually get arrested for it?
Yeah, police arrest them, which sort of blew the case up, and people were like, wait, this is not right. They're just trying to get justice for their son, and you do this. So the family, again, not getting enough support, they decided to hire their own medical examiner to conduct a second autopsy. So by this time, KJ's body had been buried. So they had to dig up his body, and they did the second autopsy. But when they cut open his body, they found all his organs missing, and in his place, they found his body stuffed with newspapers.
And they didn't give permission for this? Someone else had done it?
Yeah, the family was very shocked to find this. So when they questioned, the funeral home said that they got the body without the organs, so they had to fill up the cavity with newspapers to save cost, because when you get the body without the organs, the body can collapse in, so you need to fill it in with something. But to save cost, they decided to fill his body with newspapers, which I feel like is very disrespectful. First they don't help him to gain justice, and then they do something like this. They don't give him rest even at death.
And they don't even tell his family about it, so that he could be filled with something better than newspaper.
Yeah, exactly. So during the second autopsy, they found hemorrhaging under his jaw, and the examiner concluded that the cause of death was, and I quote,
what is the hemorrhaging? Is it
it's like bruising?
Oh, right,
yeah, under his jaw. And so the cause of death, the second examiner concluded was, and I quote, unexplained apparent non-accidental blunt force trauma. So this is completely different to what the first examiner said, where he said
and this is the examiner the
that
family hired.
So a bit more closer to the family.
So he's basically saying he's been murdered, whereas the previous one said he died of suffocation.
Basically murdered, again in quotes. He didn't die because of suffocation. Basically, that's what the second examiner is saying. So in terms of the final speculations, rumors started going about two brothers having a part in this case, and KJ's dad said that they used to bully KJ.
Oh, okay.
And apparently their dad is an FBI agent.
Right.
And many students in the school have said that they've heard one of the brothers admitting to killing KJ at one of the parties. But, no further investigation has done. It's all just rumor, speculation. I can't say for sure, they killed KJ.
But there is that,
rumors.
Evidence in a way. Not complete solid evidence.
Yeah, there's nothing putting them at the crime scene.
Yeah.
But
there's something to look at for the police.
Something to investigate, but if nothing further happens, and that is KJ's story. He doesn't get the justice he deserved just because I believe is because of the color of his skin.
So there was never a trial heard.
No, no, there wasn't. There, I think the only sort of not I don't know what the word is. Comforting thing. It wasn't exactly comforting, but you get some truth, was the second examiner saying, it wasn't because of suffocation he died. There was something else that caused his death.
But nobody was ever taken in as a suspect, interrogated. The police basically did nothing.
No, they did nothing to.
And it seems like from the beginning of the case, they never showed any initiative to try get justice for him. They
Yeah,
never
exactly.
cared.
Like, they walk up to the crime scene and they're like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, no foul play.
When
He's
he's wrapped
suffocated.
up in a gym mat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the theories they made, him jumping
Yeah.
in, it's not adding up.
Definitely not. I think, as you said, there's something to do with race there. And
Mhm.
if they did have, like, I guess, sort of, they saw black people as inferior to them, they wouldn't put in that much effort. And there are a lot of cases in America where the victim is a coloured person, and because the victim is a coloured person, the police just don't put any effort in, or they put minimal effort in just to, like, sweep it under the rug and move on to the next one.
Yeah. And what makes it more scary is, like, majority of the population, you like to think, you know, they've got empathy, they understand.
Exactly.
But if majority of the population behaves this way, sort of, you
It's
know,
hard to
you feel
change.
hopeless.
Yeah. But you would think in KJ's case, like, the parents have kids themselves, you know?
Yeah, and it happened in the school, which is more
Exactly.
scarier.
It's like a high school as well, bro. Like, these are
Yeah.
vulnerable people, and, like, surely you'd want to find out who did it to KJ because they could go do it to your kid. Like, surely there's that fear there that these guys are just wandering around somewhere.
Yeah, again, this is a very sad case. Like, a kid not getting justice just because of his race, especially for the family as well. You know,
Yeah.
they lost a child,
And then they got arrested.
Yeah, and not getting the support they need from the community. It definitely is a very sad case.
It is.
So the case we'll be talking about is the case of Samuel Harold, or as his friends used to know him as J-Rock. So in 2010, Samuel Harold was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and this means that you have, like, hallucinations, catatonic behaviour, and delusions. And so because of his bipolar disorder, it meant that he couldn't get a 9-to-5 job, and he really struggled to get employed, and he would go to different offices, and each time he'd come back with the same result, and that would be being unemployed.
Just because of his mental health.
Yeah, just because of his disorder, it just made life 10 times harder for him to cope.
Oh, that's not unfair though.
Yeah, and he still had a family as well, so he
Yeah.
really needed a job. He couldn't afford to be unemployed.
So he started using illegal means in order to provide money for his family. And this was buying and selling illegal drugs. And eventually he got found out for selling his drugs. So in 2014 he was caught and he was sentenced to 8 years. But he was actually put in a special building for people that had different mental health disorders.
Okay,
So-
so they did take into consideration about his disorder.
Yeah, it wasn't completely ignored.
Just in prison, not him getting jobs.
Yeah, just in prison.
Right.
But he was with and he was surrounded by people who had different mental health disorders, so he wasn't, like, alone. So I guess you could say he had some sort of mental health support, like the community he was in at
Yeah,
least.
like maybe he felt like he was understood there, because...
Exactly, yeah. But a few months into his stay at the prison, he received news that his mother had passed away. So now, on top of his bipolar disorder, he's also fallen into a deep depression. And this is when the prison officers said that he started to act out. I say this in quotations because during Samuel's stay, they made up a lot of things about him.
Okay.
So not everything is 100% accurate, but he
Yeah.
began to act out. And what this meant for Samuel himself was that he began to struggle mentally because of the depression, of course, and his bipolar disorder, but the guards just turned a blind eye to it, and they also started punishing him for it. So he's, like, struggling more mentally, but instead of getting support or, like, having a counsellor or psychiatrist to talk to, he just gets punished for it.
Right, but this is sort of like a building that takes into consideration that these people have mental disorders.
Yeah.
But why is these prison guards taking it out on Samuel if everyone there sort of has a mental disorder?
I think, first of all, because he had a mental health disorder, so they were discriminating against him because of it, but also because of his colour. Yeah, and that will be brought out a lot more as the crime goes on, but because of his colour and of his mental health disorder.
Right, okay.
And so when the prison guards would start punishing him for acting out, he would actually try to defend himself. Then they would throw him into solitary confinement, which is even worse because he's already going through this deep depression. And then they're isolating him away from all the other inmates and from potential support from the other inmates.
Yeah.
And this is when they started to refuse him his bipolar medicine. So now he's got the depression, and the medicine worked to a degree. Like, it helped with some of the symptoms. It wasn't perfect, but
Yeah.
it helped. And now he's being refused his bipolar medicine. So all the delusions and the hallucinations start coming. And the other inmates, they notice this. They notice Samuel is struggling, and they tell the guards constantly that he needs help, but he was just ignored.
The fact that, you know, the people who are meant to help him are the ones refusing him the help. Like, other people are with him for, you know, causing trouble.
Exactly.
Is the ones that are noticing that he needs help.
Yeah, and it's actually the criminals themselves who are the good guys in this case, not
like
the prison guards.
People you wouldn't think had empathy, but
exactly.
they're the ones.
So
It's
it sort of shows you that they're actually more human in this case than the prison guards. And so this all built up to the 21st April 2015. And this was a day where Samuel was struck with a delusion. And this delusion was pretty harmless. It was that he was getting let out of prison. And so at 8 p.m. he began packing, and he was telling all his inmates that, you know, I'm leaving today, I'm going bye-bye sort of thing, right?
Were there any, like, was he actually meant to be leaving, or?
No, this was all a delusion.
Okay.
And because, as I previously mentioned, the prison guards were refusing to give him his meds as, like, a punishment.
Yeah.
So the delusion was more likely to be more intense and just more likely to happen because he wasn't receiving his medication. And so he still had, like, a few more years in prison, so he wasn't leaving. And the inmates knew this as well. And, you know, they told the officer, they were like, Samuel's thinks he's leaving, like he's having this delusion, he needs his medication or he just needs some support. And throughout the whole thing, Samuel was very calm, and I think he even went up to one of the officers and he was like, I'm leaving today. And then he went to go sit down on one of the tables. So he was very calm and relaxed throughout the whole thing. And then once the officer becomes acknowledged that Samuel thinks he's about to leave, he then sends out a red dot alarm. So what this red dot alarm does is it alerts all of the prison guards, and when they get the alarm they think that there's a massive fight or a prisoner's being very aggressive, and that's why the officer that's set the alarm off needs extra support.
So it's just for aggressive behaviours?
Yeah, it's when one officer needs extra support because they can't deal with an inmate
By themselves.
Yeah. But this wasn't the case because Samuel was just calm.
Yeah.
But he had alerted it regardless of that. So it may have been because of his race, or he just didn't want to deal with his mental health problem.
Yeah.
But he was discriminated because of it, and so this alarm was set out. And within a few minutes, Samuel was surrounded by 20 police officers. But these weren't just like random police officers. These police officers had previously abused him and previously punished him.
Oh, so basically it's bullies then.
Yeah, exactly. So they knew who Samuel was, and they knew about his condition. They knew everything, right? And so these had been the ones that had been abusing him. And so, of course, Samuel's surrounded by 20 officers, and it sets off his fight or flight response.
Yeah.
And what he does is he runs.
Okay,
Right?
yeah.
He runs.
Yeah.
And so they all start chasing him down the corridor, and he gets tackled to the ground by them because there's like 20 police officers versus Samuel.
Samuel, yeah.
And so he's tackled to the ground, and he's face first to the concrete ground. So I'm guessing they're outside at this point, or
Yeah.
they take him outside.
Yeah.
And they start beating him up, stomping on his head, on his necks. And one of the inmates said that one of the guards jumped on him. So there's already enough support there to detain Samuel. And then one guard proceeds to jump on him, which is unnecessary and very brutal.
Wait, first of all, he hasn't done anything.
He hasn't done anything. He was calm. I mean, he ran off.
Which makes sense when you're
Yeah.
like surrounded by 20.
10 guards. That's enough to like scare anyone.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then one of the guards jumps on him, and these guards are all part of a famous gang of prison guards known as the Beat Up Squad, who put terror on inmates. So this group of 20 prison guards, they're known for beating up inmates, they're known for terrorising inmates when they haven't done anything wrong. I mean, they're in prison,
Yeah.
but they haven't done anything to deserve that punishment.
Yeah. I find it so crazy to think that they sort of abuse him for having that mental health disorder, but then punish him by refusing his medication, which is obviously going to make it worse.
Exactly.
So it's just like a
So it's-
cycle.
Yeah.
So stupid.
And the issue is like where Samuel was placed in prison, it was for people with mental health disorders. So these prison guards, if anything, should be more aware,
Yeah.
should be more supportive.
Exactly.
But instead, they're worse, and they just beat them up for fun. It seems like, or
Yeah.
like when they get bored.
Mm-hmm.
And so the higher ups knew about it as well. It wasn't just the inmates that knew about it, but the squad was never like told off, or was never
Detained
broken
for the
apart.
punishment, yeah.
Yeah. And so at some point, Samuel falls unconscious, but the prison guards are still attacking him, and now they're shouting racist slurs at him, and they're spitting at him. So now that's like clear evidence.
It's clear, it's race motivated.
Exactly. And so one of the guards actually hurts himself by beating up Samuel, and I believe he breaks his wrist or something.
How unfortunate.
Yeah.
Honestly.
So then they call the ambulance, right?
For
And
Samuel?
Not for Samuel, but for this.
Because he broke his wrist.
But because of this guard's broken his wrist.
Poor child,
yeah.
honestly.
And when they come over, right, one of the female officers covers Samuel with a sheet. So, like, the ambulance don't see him, the ambulance don't question this unconscious man on the floor.
And they cover him up.
They cover him up, so they're actually trying to hide what they've done.
Mm-hmm.
Whilst this officer that's, like, sprained his wrist or something gets taken.
The help, yeah.
Yeah. And so what happens is, the ambulance then leave.
And they still haven't, like, said, oh, there's a severe patient that needs help.
Yeah, they haven't told the ambulance that there's this guy dying on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happens is they continue to torture him, even though he's unconscious. Like, man's not even moving because he's just like,
Okay.
he's
That's-
just out of it.
Okay, it already went too far, but, like, this is going even further than
Exactly.
this.
And it's just continuous. They just haven't had enough.
Yeah.
And they continue to beat him up.
Mm-hmm.
And so 2 different prison guards, I'm pretty sure these prison guards are still part of, like, the beat-up squad.
Mm-hmm.
But 2 different ones, they throw him down the stairwell, and what happened is, because he was already unconscious, he had no control over, like, how he was going to end up. He ended up in a really distorted position, and the guards just left him there for a while. And then one of them decided to go get a wheelchair and put him in the wheelchair, and then they stuck him in a cell where they said that he could recover. When he's dying, he's not recovering.
Right.
And they actually bound his arms and legs together. So this guy's unconscious, but they're still torturing him, or they're still afraid of him, that they, like, bind his arms and legs together.
Yeah, they're
They
like
just-
further humiliating in that
Exactly.
sense.
They just go through, like, unnecessary means
Mhm.
when none of it really needs to happen.
Yeah.
And so the ambulance come back, and this time it is for Samuel. And what they tell the ambulance...
Did the prison guards call the ambulance for Samuel?
They call it for yeah.
Right.
So they tell the ambulance that he was suffering from an overdose, even though, first of all, he didn't have any drugs he was taking himself.
Okay, so all the bruises on his body was because of the overdose.
Overdose, exactly. So it was just a
Wow.
really lame excuse.
Okay.
So the ambulance came 20 minutes later after they'd taken the prison guard. But he was pronounced dead on arrival. And actually, the prison never told Samuel's family that he was dead. So so Samuel's died, right?
Yeah.
And the whole day after he's died, they never tell his family. They don't think, oh, maybe I should ring up his wife, maybe I should ring up his mum, let them know what's happened.
Mm-hmm.
So his family are never notified by the police. What happens is the next morning they receive an anonymous phone call, which is from one of the inmates, telling Samuel's sister that her brother's died. So an inmate had to tell the family that Samuel's died. The prison wouldn't.
Yeah.
Like, the people though were in charge of his well-being, in charge of, you know, making sure he get his medication.
Mm-hmm.
They should have phoned him up, but they
Yeah.
didn't. It had to be an anonymous call from an inmate that this family don't know.
Yeah, so like you said, in this case, the criminals are so much more humane than what
Exactly. They actually, like, take responsibility for helping Samuel. You know, they wanted to get him support. That's why they went to the officers, and then one inmate even calls up his sister saying,
Yeah.
like, your brother's dead. And then the prison staff told her about her brother's passing. So the cause of death for Samuel was homicide. He was clearly murdered. I
Mhm.
mean, he had no drugs in his body. He had bruises all over him.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
It was clearly.
yeah.
Yeah. There was, like, no other explanation, right?
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, the prison was not saying this, and Samuel's family demanded answers from the prison guards. And then the prison told the family that Harold, so he was Samuel Harold, was a dangerous, violent individual, and he had assaulted an officer, which is why it took multiple members of staff to restrain him. Whereas if you ask any other inmate in that prison at that time, he was calm.
Yeah.
He was calm. These inmates have no reason to lie.
So are they saying, like, the reason for his death is because he was a dangerous man, and
Exactly.
he had to be restrained by the police officers, which led to his
Yeah.
death.
So they're saying that he attacked a prison guard first.
Hmm.
So the prison guard was just acting in self-defense. He needed to press the red dot alarm. So
So
all
they're
the
making
other
up
guards-
excuses
Exactly.
for their actions.
They make it seem like he's a bad guy.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure, I mean, they probably erased the CCTV footage.
Mhm. I mean, they're in charge. They can literally do
Exactly.
anything.
But like all the other inmates said he was calm.
Mm-hmm.
And he'd never like beaten up an officer before. Like he wasn't even in prison because he assaulted someone. He was just in prison for dealing with drugs.
Yeah.
So he'd never shown any signs of being violent. I mean, he had bipolar disorder, but that doesn't make you a violent individual.
Yeah, definitely.
But that was their excuse. And then they said, so he was a violent individual, which is why they beat him up, and he died from synthetic cannabis that he sneaked in. It was just lies after lies. They just
So,
kept making up lies.
Overdose as well then.
The overdose was the
Okay, so
synthetic
they're saying
cannabis.
literally anything else other than them killing an innocent
Exactly. When
man. Wow.
people knew about this beat up squad, you know, they had all the inmates to testify. Like, if they had done this for a trial, gotten the inmates in, it would have been so clear that
Yeah.
the prison were the ones to blame for.
Because
And-
there's so much witnesses.
Exactly. And inmates, why would you lie? You know, it's not going to get you anywhere.
Yeah.
So it was just completely pointless. And the U.S. attorney office said they wouldn't do any legal action against any of the prison staff, and they didn't do it because they said there was reasonable force. So basically, they said that what the prison guards did to Samuel was reasonable. That's why.
So everyone still assumes, or like are making an excuse that Samuel's a dangerous man.
Exactly. And many of the guards today, they still work in the prison system, but despite the autopsy stating homicide. So even the autopsy states homicide, the inmate states homicide. It's just clear he was murdered, but they still work in the prison system today, which is so scary to think about because that means, you know, another inmate could die tomorrow or the next day after that.
Yeah.
Especially in the mental health unit, like.
Yeah, because these criminals, you want them to be rehabilitated in
Mhm.
prisons.
Exactly.
But if the people who's meant to like help you get there and like protect you is working against you, you do take drastic measures to survive, which then means when they come out,
Exactly. And I think primarily he was discriminated because of his mental health illness, but then obviously they shouted racial slurs at him whilst beating him up. So
Yeah.
it shows both racist and...
yeah, it was very obvious that he just had to have the right help and he could have lived a
Yeah,
happy life.
definitely. If they had just given his medication
Mm-hmm.
and not punished him for being depressed, because that's what it was.
Yeah.
And like, you can't blame him for being depressed. I mean, his mom died.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's
exactly.
like...
It is from a dark place that he is coming.
Exactly, and it just shows a lack of care, like, overall. But you wouldn't think that, like, the prison guards would be someone that would inflict it, because they're meant to protect you, you know? But they failed him in this case.
So the final crime I'm going to be talking about is the case of the Tangshan, I hope I'm saying that right, Tangshan restaurant attack. So I'm going to start from what went viral, like what exactly happened in this crime. So a video was posted onto the internet on June 10th, 2022. So it's very recent, this case. So the video goes viral everywhere in China and then eventually worldwide, because you know, internet travels fast. So it basically became very viral. And what exactly is in the video, you may ask? So the video is a very violent video which showed a group of men attacking 4 women. And the reason for this attack, it was because one of the women rejected one of the guy's advances he made on her.
Okay.
So right from the beginning you can see where this is going. So the video is 4 minutes and 8 seconds long, and it's taken from a CCTV footage from a local Chinese barbecue restaurant. How the video is like released is the CCTV footages are from 2 angles. So one is from inside the restaurant and the second angle is from outside the restaurant. So you have clear views
Of
Of-
everything that's happening.
yeah,
Yeah.
around the restaurant, inside the restaurant, everything. And because this is a restaurant, you know, there are diners everywhere, inside and out. So what happens is this is 3 a.m. Early in the morning,
Okay.
and there's might not be like normal here, but in Asia, people usually go out to restaurants in the middle of the night, you know, to get food with their friends, you know, to just get a meal. So, because this was in China, it was quite normal for the restaurant to be quite busy. So it was pretty packed inside the restaurant and the outside. So at 3 a.m. in the restaurant at this point, there are 8 men and 6 women inside.
Okay.
And so that's 14 people inside. And there's another 14 people outside the restaurant. So pretty packed restaurant. And one of the tables inside consisted of 4 women. So this is the 4 out of the 6 women inside the restaurant. And, you know, they were all friends. They had, you know, they all came out to have like a late night dinner. They were all casually dressed. Like, they looked like they were in their PJs. So, I mean, the way they're dressed isn't really important, you know, but some people will be like, oh, what were they wearing and stuff.
Yeah.
But, you know,
They were just in their pajamas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So before I go any further, I want to talk about how I'm gonna, you know, talk about the victims. So their names weren't released. So I'll be calling them Girl 1, Girl 2, Girl 3, Girl 4.
Okay.
Hopefully that should be, you know, easy to track.
Yeah.
And Girl 1 will be the main victim in this case. So going back to what happened, I saw the video myself about like what's happening, and it's quite sad and very violent. So I mean, if you're gonna search it up, I would, you know, just trigger warning.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind.
Yeah. But so going back to the video, in the video you can see inside the restaurant the 4 friends. They're sitting at like one of the corner tables,
Okay.
and you can just see like 3 girls sitting there. That's because girl number 4 had gone outside to take a phone call. And at this point, a man wearing a green jacket, he walks into the restaurant, and then he goes over to the register. So he was sitting outside the restaurant. He comes inside and he goes over to the register, and apparently he says, you know, he asked the chef to like hurry up with their food. His friends are waiting.
Oh, okay.
And then on his way back outside, we can see him like stopping at the table where the 4 girls are sitting, and then he places his hand on the back of girl number 1.
Okay.
And obviously, because this is complete stranger, she's never seen this guy in her life, she pushes his hand away,
Yeah.
and then she asks him, "But what do you want? Why are you doing this?" And he says something along the lines of, "I want to do you,"
Okay.
which is completely disrespectful.
Yeah.
You
If
don't-
she had like a normal response, I mean, a random stranger, that's enough to freak
Yeah, I mean,
anyone
first of
out.
all, he places his hand on her. That's a complete no-no.
Exactly,
Like,
that's
you
a
don't-
violation.
Yeah, you don't take over someone's like personal space.
Yeah, especially if you don't know them.
Exactly. And then he comes up with, "I want to do you."
Exactly.
And it's just,
That's
yeah. And then she then responds with, "Are you sick? What is wrong with you?" So when she says this, she's like progressively getting louder. So the rest
Okay.
of the diners can hear like what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
He tries to touch her again.
Yeah.
She pushes him away a bit more violently
Uh-huh.
and loudly says, "Get lost, you pervert." So at this point, everyone knows what's going on.
Yeah.
So the green jacket guy, I'm gonna call him green guy
Okay.
because, you know, he was wearing a green jacket, so green guy. He then slaps girl number 1 across the face very violently, and she, as a defense, she grabs a beer bottle to smash on his head, but he is seen trying to pin her down onto her chair, like pushing down on her neck and her chest, so
Okay.
she's unable to like,
So he's quite dominant in this fight.
Yeah.
Like.
so
yeah.
she misses like hitting him on the head with the bottle. And you know her friends are sitting right across her, so seeing
Yeah.
this, you know, both her friends jump into action. Girl number 2, she grabs another bottle and smashes it onto the green guy's head,
Okay.
and he pushed her back and she falls and hits her head on the edge of the table. So girl number 2 at this point, she hits her head at the edge of the table that's
Is she
adjacent to
bleeding
this.
or is she just?
It's unable to see from the video, but
Okay.
she is, at this point she's completely on the floor.
Uh-huh.
Like, you can see she is severely hurt because, you know,
Yeah.
she's unable to get back up immediately. And before I go on any further, I want to talk about like the other people in the restaurant. So there were, like I said, 8 men and 6 women in the restaurant. So out of the 6 women, 4 are the 4 friends, and the 2 other women, they came as a double date, so they're with their boyfriends.
Oh, okay.
So the boyfriends are like 2 out of the 8 men in the restaurant, and
So there's a group of 4 together, 2 girls and 2 men.
yeah, so
Yeah.
they're on a double date, and the rest of the table is occupied by 6 men.
Okay.
So, you know, that's an overview of the people, and like, it's important to know why
Yeah.
the sort of people that's in the restaurant. So at this point, there were, like I said, two couples at the restaurant, and the boyfriends can be seen trying to shield their girlfriends from what's going on, because obviously women are being attacked, and they're with their girlfriends, so they can be seen trying to shield their girlfriends. Whereas the rest of the six guys in the restaurant, they can be seen sitting at their table, as staring at them, as if watching a show. Like they don't
Also,
get
they
up.
don't intervene or anything.
No, they just stare at the entire commotion that's happening, which is like
That's horrible. Like
Yeah, I
you're
mean-
just watching someone get beaten up, and you're like, all right.
exactly.
Anyways.
I mean, everyone like is equally. Everyone can do everything, sort of thing. But like
Yeah.
six men, when you see like women being attacked, they could have easily
Exactly.
overthrown him, or
Yeah.
like just told him to stop, and this could.
Or just like seeing anyone getting beaten up.
Yeah.
You don't just watch it.
Exactly. So it's important to know that these six guys, they don't do anything, they just stare. And hearing the commotion, the green guy's friends who are sitting outside the restaurant, they rush into the restaurant ready to fight. They don't question anything. They see their friend, beating up a woman. They're like, yep, I want to join in. It looks fun. So without
Just
questioning.
because their friend is.
Yeah. And, they walk in ready to fight, throw hands. And his friend consists of 7 men
Oh wow.
and 2 women. So this is the green guy's friend who was
So
sitting
he's
outside.
got women beating up these other women.
No. So I'll go into detail like what
Okay.
what sort of friends take part in this assault. So
But that's the group.
that's the
That's-
group
okay.
the green guy is part of. So another guy, so this is the green guy's friend. He is seen wearing a black shirt, so I'm going to call him Black Shirt Guy. I'm not very creative, but none of the names are released.
Okay.
So I'm just going to go with that. He joins the green guy and starts attacking girl number 2 who is on the ground. So she's
Right.
the one who hit her
So she's
head.
already like pretty much unconscious, or like.
Not entirely unconscious,
Okay.
but she is on the
Very
ground. She's
vulnerable,
very
yeah.
vulnerable position. And girl number 3, she rushes over to girl number 2
Mm-hmm.
and tries to protect her by shielding girl number 2 with her body. So
Okay.
at this point, girl number 2 is on the floor, girl number 3 is over her trying to protect her. And, the green guy and the black shirt guy, they're, attacking these 2 women.
Mm-hmm. What about girl 1 at this point? Is she
She is seen, like, standing a bit further away.
okay?
Like, I think she's trying to, like, regain or, like, understand what's going
Uh-huh.
on, what to do next. So at this point, no one else is doing anything. And
So
this
they're
is
just
what's...
watching.
Yeah. And another bunch of green guys' friends walk in. So a guy wearing a white shirt, a guy wearing a hat, and a girl with a skirt. They walk in. The girl is seen, like, she's seen walking into the restaurant carrying a chair in her hand. So I think it's sort of like she realizes, oh, there's a fight going on. I'm getting ready. I'm getting this chair to use as a weapon. So she
Yeah.
can be seen walking into the restaurant with a chair. However, she doesn't use the chair. Like,
Okay.
she realizes, oh, he's beating up a woman. So she leaves the chair there. But then the white shirt guy, he picks up that chair and smashes it onto girl number 2, and girl number 3 is on the floor. And again, the assault keeps going on. And the hat guy is seen trying to defuse the situation. So he is part of the green guy's friend.
Okay.
But he's, saying, oh, leave them alone, let's go, this has gone too far.
So he's trying to help the woman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And girl number 3, girl number 1, who was the girl that, the green guy asked, she is sort of like forgotten at this point. But then the green guy turns around and he realizes, oh, she's still there. So he then punches girl number 1 in the head, and the rest of the friends join him. So they move on from girl number 2 and girl number 3 and go back to
Okay.
girl number 1, and they drag her outside by her hair.
Oh god, that's horrible.
So girl number 4, who went to take the call, she comes back and she sees this huge commotion, and she sees her friends being beat up by the men she's never seen before. So she'd be confused.
Yeah.
You'd be confused if you walk into like a situation like that.
Exactly.
And terrified at the same time, like you don't know what's going on. The men in the restaurant, at this point, they're still sitting and watching, doing nothing.
So they haven't moved at all. They
Nope.
just-
Yeah. And at this point, one of the girls from the couples turns to girl number 2 and says to call the police. So girl number 2, she's, she got up, she's able to compose herself. So one of the
Yeah.
couples, on the double date, one of the girls, she says to girl number 2, like, now's your chance to call the police.
Okay.
So girl number 2 grabs her phone and rushes out to
Call
call the police. The other couple, they manage to leave the restaurant. So, there are two couples, right?
Yeah.
So one of the couple is who asked to call the police. The second couple, they managed to, get out of the restaurant. But you can very clearly see that the boyfriend is trying to, like, comfort the girlfriend. Like, she is seen to be very hysterical and very panicked. And in the video, you can see, like, the boyfriend hugging onto her, trying to comfort her.
Okay.
And once they're outside is when you can see girl number one being dragged by her hair outside. As soon as the girl from the couple, she sees this, she is ready to run to girl number one to try and protect her. But her boyfriend had to physically hold her back.
Seriously,
To
so
stop her
he
from-
prevented her from
Yeah,
helping that
I
girl.
mean, yes, it makes sense. If she had gone in, she would have gotten hurt herself. But the fact that it was the women who were the ones who were ready to
Exactly.
help in the situation, when I feel like the men in this restaurant could have easily overpowered the
They could have
group.
sorted it out. They could have just like ended it.
Yeah.
But it was only the women helping each other.
Yeah, and it's so sad to see like the fear and distress in the girlfriend's face as her boyfriend is trying to drag her away. She knows she
Exactly.
wants to help, but like
if he wanted to protect his girlfriend, he should have just like told her to go and try to help those girls.
yeah, exactly.
Because that would have been the right thing to do. Because that way, his girlfriend's okay, but he's also helping someone that's
Yeah,
clearly
or,
in
like,
pain.
getting the rest of the men in the group to like, get together and make some sort of plan.
Just get those like lazy guys in the
Yeah.
restaurant to come and help. Like
Exactly, they're sitting there like it's a show.
exactly.
Honestly, but yeah, and you can see
Mhm.
them being, him dragging her out of the view of the CCTV, and they escape. So girl number 4, she rushes over and punches green guy. So this is the girl who was on her phone.
Okay.
She, registers her friend as being assaulted. So she
Yes.
rushes over and punches green guy, and he
Mhm.
slaps her so hard that she falls over and hits her head on the concrete steps.
Oh god.
So she is also hurt again. So
Uh-huh.
at this point, all 4 of the friends have been assaulted in one way or another. So the assault continues. And one of the girls in the green guys group, so I told them
Okay.
there were 2 girls in the group,
Yeah.
right? She asked them to stop at this point.
Uh-huh.
And the white shirt guy, so
Yes.
he's part of the green guys group and, assaulting the 4 girls,
Mhm.
he slaps her across the face.
So he slaps his own friend across
Yeah,
the face.
like he slaps her across the face very hard, and then he pauses. You can see him like pause for a second,
Okay.
registering what just happened.
Yeah.
And when he realizes, oh shoot, it's my friend that I slapped
Mhm.
across the face, you can see her like rushing over to her and trying to hug her,
Yeah.
which I feel like is so
It's so messed up. Like he's okay with hitting other ladies, but
like he's trying to hug and like apologize to his friend
Exactly.
who is a woman for hitting her. It's just
it's messed up. Like the whole dynamics things. Like you just
it
Doesn't
makes
make
sense.
sense,
Yeah,
no.
and the fact that he was like completely caught up in the frenzy of like beating her, he had to like
Uh-huh.
take a moment to like stare at her and realize, oh shoot, this is my friend. Like he saw another
Uh-huh.
female trying to stop, and like his natural instinct was to like slap her across the face. It's so scary to think that you're not even thinking, they're just doing it like
exactly
that mindlessly at this point. So, and yeah, he can be seen in the video like trying to hug her and like
Mhm.
apologize to her, which really angered me. Like it was very
It's
disturbing
not
and
right
sad to
that he
see.
thinks it's okay to hit someone else because he's not friends with them,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not okay to hit.
Yeah,
their
yeah.
friend.
Exactly. So, girl number 4, she starts recording, and at this point, girl number 1 is still being assaulted, and her friends realize, oh, there's nothing they can't do. They can't like physically overpower her, overpower the group. So,
Mhm.
girl number 4 starts recording as evidence,
Okay.
and so for a while the guys don't notice, but then one of the guys points and says, oh, she's recording, and she's slapped again, and she runs into an alleyway. So, girl number 3 runs after them into the alleyway. So this all happens outside of the CCTV view. You can
Okay.
see them running off
Mhm.
into like an alleyway, but that's all you can see. And girl number 3 runs after them, and at this point you can hear like cries and screams coming from the alleyway. You don't really know what's going on, but
You can assume.
Yeah. And girl number 1, the one who is like
Asked out.
the one who got most of the assault, like the one who rejected the guy.
Mhm.
She regains herself and she runs into the alleyway too, and again screams and cries can be heard, and a bit later the perpetrators can be seen running away from the scene, and the girls they don't walk out, they're like left in the alleyway. So when the police come, the girls are found in the alleyway. So
So they've been beaten up so bad that they can't even walk away.
yeah, the fact that, you know, the girls went through so much, but as soon as they realize their friend is in trouble, they're quick to take into action, unlike any of the other
Exactly.
people in the group who could have easily overpowered them.
And they weren't scared to get her. Like, they probably knew that they were gonna get hurt,
Oh yeah,
but they were like
definitely.
just ready to defend them, even if they're like
Exactly.
dying themselves, but no one else did anything.
So in the aftermath of what happened at the Tangshan restaurant attack, 2 of the girls were said to be severely injured and the other 2 slightly injured.
Okay.
So
It was like girl 1 and girl.
I think girl 1 is definitely one
Most
of the one who's
injured,
severely
yeah.
injured. Like, I've seen like blurry pictures of hers, and you can see like her entire face is bandaged. There's so much blood everywhere,
Oh wow.
and like she had to bear most of the assault.
Uh-huh.
And some of the people, and you know, obviously most of the support were for the girls,
Yeah.
and that's a good thing. Like
Mhm.
majority of people realize, oh, this is wrong, this is unacceptable,
Exactly.
and there was a lot of support for the girls. But you know, there are always those some people who's
Yeah.
like there were a few people who supported the guys and said that, oh, if she didn't overreact to his advances, then she wouldn't have been beat up so bad, or like she provoked him first, basically making up excuses for his actions, saying, oh, he was too drunk, and which is quite disturbing. Like,
Especially when he did provoke.
yeah, it
He's
was
the one that provoked the situation. Like, he used disrespectful language towards her. He touched her. If you don't want to get beaten up, or if you don't want to get like shouted at, don't go around touching random people and being disrespectful. It's
exactly.
quite common sense.
It's
Honestly.
very obvious from the video. Like, he's the one who went first,
And the fact they were trying to justify that, and you're like, no, you didn't do anything wrong.
Mhm.
Just makes it even worse.
It's so sad.
That like he has support out there, and there's probably other guys that would help him beat up women.
And within a day or two, the town of Tangshan was swarmed with policemen.
Okay.
So like there were police patrol cars everywhere. So you know, it became like the safest town in China for a while. I say that in quotes. So what they did was policemen stood around tables with only women in outside diners,
Okay.
and you know, some even had the words, "If you need help, just let us know," taped on their back. So you know, they would like stand near tables with only women dining.
Okay. To
And-
protect them.
Yeah, I'll get to it. And at this point, the Chinese netizens, so like the Chinese people on the net, they were confused and annoyed, and they said that it was all just for show and doesn't really improve or change anything. So people were not satisfied with what they did. Like, I see where they're coming from. Like, just saying, oh, if you just standing around or like having that tape to their back doesn't really solve the problem,
Yeah.
or like changing the fact that there are people like this.
Exactly.
And what's even more shocking is that some policemen had these big megaphones which they used to shout into the restaurants and streets, saying, and I quote, "No beating allowed, especially of women," and "Ladies, let your husbands protect you." So they made a lot of sexist comments, saying that, oh, women can't go.
So it's more for entertainment almost.
Yeah, saying like, oh yeah, we are doing something. You know, we have
Exactly.
taken it. Look at what we're doing. We're shouting random stuff.
And I feel like they came from the wrong perspective as well. Like, women shouldn't have to be protected. Men should change their behavior. Like, it should be men that are changing themselves. Women shouldn't have to protect themselves.
Yeah, like she shouldn't have like a guy always with her having to protect her.
Exactly.
She should be able to go out by herself and feel safe and protected.
And the
That's
fact they were saying like, let your husbands protect you. I mean, there was that one couple in the video where he was quite obviously trying to protect his girlfriend, but he was still letting another lady get beaten up. Like,
yeah, 4 other ladies.
exactly.
And it all just contradicts. And when the phone call for the police was placed on the day of the assault, the police actually arrived 23 minutes later than when the phone call was placed.
Okay.
And this was quite suspicious because the police station was only 5 minutes away,
Oh.
and it's 3 a.m. in the morning. There's no traffic. There's no one on the
Exactly.
roads. So you
Even if you walked, it wouldn't have taken that long.
23 minutes, which is very suspicious, and you know that was wrong from the police side.
Yes.
And later on, the 2 main perpetrators were arrested. So the green guy and the white shirt guy were arrested, and a bit later on after that, the black shirt guy was also arrested. So talking about the perpetrators, the shocking part is the green guy and the white shirt guy, both were married and had kids.
So he was actually cheating
Yes.
on his wife.
Yeah,
And they
very blatantly cheating. And these were not good guys either. Like, they took part in illegal gambling.
Okay. So they
And-
were like criminals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And both these guys, the green guy and the white shirt guy,
Mm.
they also took part in the assault of another guy. Like, this has been going on for quite a bit.
So this
Like-
wasn't anything new to them. They were used to like
They were used to
assaulting
like
people.
assaulting people.
Yeah.
So there is history to them. But like, yeah, they're not good people at this point. Not at this point, they never were. But nothing more is heard about the victims,
Mhm.
and people start speculating or saying that they're all dead, or like
Okay.
one of them must have died.
Uh-huh.
People
So rumors are made up about it.
rumors, but later on the victims do speak out. They still prefer to stay anonymous, and they
Mhm.
debunked all the rumors saying that they were all dead or something like that.
Okay.
But that's all of the case as of right now. Like, 3 of the guys are arrested, but I feel
Mhm.
like this could have been avoided.
Definitely. I mean, if they'd already assaulted someone before, surely measures should have been taken then.
Exactly. Or just what really frustrated me is like the amount of people that were there. 14
Mhm.
inside, 14 outside.
Exactly. Especially those guys inside where the fight started.
Yeah.
If they had just intervened there, those girls wouldn't have been so severely hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Like, instead of just watching and not doing anything.
Yeah. You can see like the owner of the restaurant, her like manager trying to come and like stop it, but like she's a 50-year-old woman.
Exactly.
Like what's the best she can do?
Especially with all these like young guys who were. I mean, there were so many of them.
Yeah, and when they're like in that huge rage,
Yeah.
there's more power over them. So
And the worst part is those guys that did nothing. I mean, they've all got a mum. Like, that's
yeah,
something
yeah,
important.
yeah.
And I'm pretty sure some of them probably had girlfriends or they had at least sisters.
Mm-hmm.
And if your sister was getting beaten up, you wouldn't just not do anything about it. So how can they just sit there and see these girls who's someone's sister, someone's daughter just getting beaten up like that? It's just, you think you're human, right? But those guys don't seem human in that respect. That they
Yeah.
just let it occur.
And the fact that no one thought of calling the police, like the girls who was
Exactly.
involved in the assault had to call them themselves
Uh-huh.
to try and say.
And the boyfriends didn't try to help. Like, they have a girlfriend.
yeah, they can be seen trying to protect the girlfriends, but
Exactly.
like,
I don't think their girlfriend needs protecting. I think those ladies need protecting because they never
Yeah.
tried to assault the girlfriends or.
it's so sad. Like, it's nice to see like women, those 2 girls getting into action,
Mm-hmm.
but they couldn't because of their boyfriends holding them back. But it's the fact that there were so many men who could have, stereotypically men are stronger than
Exactly.
women, and they could have easily,
Mhm.
stopped the whole thing.
And just that the whole thing started because this guy got rejected, even though he has kids and he has a wife.
Yeah, the
Like-
fact that I believe he did this because his ego was hurt. Like,
Yeah. it's
of
probably-
measly women rejected me. How in the world she did that? It's sort of
And the fact that people from the public were supporting him, saying like, "Oh, she provoked it. How did she provoke it? She wasn't even like paying attention to him." And this
Yeah.
guy comes and puts his hand on her.
what's sad is like she is out in public with her
Mhm.
friends. There are so many people around. She rejects the guy. That should be the end of it. But
Exactly.
the fact that they were completely assaulted to the point that
The
they're
police had to be
severely
called.
injured and the police had to
Yeah.
be called. That must make you feel completely scared and hopeless. Like, there are
Mhm.
people around. Like,
Exactly.
people are the ones who are meant to help you.
Yeah.
And the fact that no one did anything makes you even more scared to like go somewhere alone.
Exactly.
The fact that you're surrounded by people, nothing happens.
Mhm.
Then what
'Cause
happens when you're alone?
You rely on just random people to
Yeah,
be like a support system. Like, of course you don't know them, but like you
you
like
know
to
it's
think.
wrong. Like, very obviously what is going on is wrong, and you like
Yeah.
to think that people have the moral compass to like, realize it's wrong and get the
Mhm.
help that's needed.
And that's why, like, I guess people feel. I would say people feel safer in the daytime than nighttime. And like one of the big differences is there's more people around at daytime. I mean,
Mhm.
it depends
Wait,
what country you are.
Yeah.
But like,
But 3 a.m. like I said, in Asian culture,
Mhm.
restaurants are open because
Yeah.
it is part of their culture to like go late at
Mhm.
night.
And they probably didn't feel scared going because they're like, I'm not going to be alone. It's
Mhm.
not like in the UK, for example, 3 a.m. you go to a restaurant. I'll be very surprised if it was busy.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
it would shock me if it was busy.
Mhm.
But like there, they should feel safe. Well,
Exactly.
they don't, and it's just a shame because
And such like a public place as well. Wasn't it like in a hidden alleyway or like in a parking lot?
exactly, yeah.
It's like completely out in the
And
open.
especially because it was in China, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, just like what you're taught in like psychology in class, right? They always say that China's such a known as a collectivist culture, so like it's a community culture.
Mm-hmm.
And China and Japan, those type of countries are known for people just helping each other regardless if they know them or not, because it is a community. But this is a really sad example of showing that like despite the culture or despite how China is known, like
Mm-hmm.
the community in that restaurant, they didn't help each other.
Yeah.
They just let each other get beaten up.
Exactly. So it's again a very sad case. Like I feel like a lot could have done to prevent this whole thing
Mhm.
of it, becoming into such a big thing,
Exactly.
but nothing was done. The fact that Green Guy's friends were quickly able to get into that mindset of like attacking these women makes you wonder, like, is it in their nature, or them hanging out with these sort of people sort of nurtured them into that sort of person. But it's something to wonder about, which we'll be discussing in our next episode, which is nature versus nurture.
That was smooth. Check out our 4th episode where we discuss nature versus nurture. Thank you for listening and stay safe.
The audience are free to interrupt and not interrupt. Damn it. The shopping. Sorry.
In Fish Hill Corrections Society.
Fish Hill Correction Society.
Yeah.
Society?
Yeah.
Whoa, okay.
But they said the cause of death was go for illegal means in providing for his family.
Don't cry. It's okay.
This friend really annoys me. Like, what the hell is that? Thank you for listening. And stab me.
And stay safe.
Oh, and stay safe. Wait. What the hell? How did they be like, yeah, man did jump. No. Man did not jump in. It's so dumb.
Sorry.
The police